consumer, there has to be full interoperability, all to all, mobile money to bank account to any other account that you have in the financial system. Because at the end of the day, if I don't have resources and I only have one tool, there is no incentive for me to get another tool just because I can't, send money to my mom who is on another channel. Aside from allowing this interoperability all to all, there needs to also be provision for all of the financial service providers to impact in some way the decisions that are taken at the country level for digital public infrastructure. So that trust component of the consumer being able to access any and interoperable all to all also works from the provider's side and making sure that they can provide input to the decisions that are made for the digital public infrastructure. And that's where central banks, financial authorities are key part of the inclusive governance of these digital public infrastructure to ensure that at the core, the infrastructure is really looking at the benefits of customers and really preventing dominance of commercial interest because it is a scheme for public interest. So that's how we define for the progress level of inclusivity. And we actually have an aspirational level of inclusivity that we call the mature inclusivity. And in that phase, the consumer has access to all the use cases possible because it's not just about sending money, receiving money, and paying, but you actually want all the interaction you do in the financial system, all the interaction you do with cash in your ecosystem. So the value chain of your needs as a consumer to be serviced by digital infrastructure that is available. So that's really enabling all use cases. But it is also, I think you've mentioned that also, making sure that the system is safe, that the system is providing recourse mechanism for consumers, so really taking into consideration consumer protection, recourse mechanism, data privacy, cybersecurity standards to ensure that it is providing and building to that trust and security aspect. And last but not least, the DPI has also to provide the affordability component. We at Africananda, we are really advocating for access to financial services for all, not just a few that can afford it. So the affordability component is very key, and we feel that the fees that customers are paying for access to the service and financial service should be as low as possible, and the competition should happen on the additional services that are offered beyond just the basic. The Ghana Interbank Payment and Settlement System, GIPS, is a good example of what we call a progress inclusive instant payment scheme in Africa. And if you look at the journey of Ghana, which started in 2007, and the capacity of the system to add, first of all, the interoperable card payment system through eSwitch, and then which happened around 2008, and then adding the Ghana Instant Payment within real-time payments in the banking system in 2015, adding also mobile money interoperability in 2018, and in 2020, adding a universal QR code to enable all payments. And lastly, I think I was recently at 2022, launching a Ghana bank-wide mobile wallet. All of these contributed to move financial inclusion, which was estimated in 2010 at 41%, to 2023 today, financial inclusion in Ghana is at 85%. So yes, definitely, digital public infrastructure, inclusive digital public infrastructure, is at the core of enabling universal access to financial services for all in countries. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's great, Sabine, and thanks for those insights. And I guess you have touched upon few of the very important aspects, right? Like, so one being the the entire usage and access part of it, and the second being how do you bring that trust, right, for the citizens, and the affordability part of it, right? If you want to take it to the masses, right, wherein the people who are lower in the order are not able to pay for those services, right? If we make it expensive, right? And in fact, this was one of the point that Pramod as well mentioned, right, in the keynote, wherein we talk about DPIs, right? So the focus of the governments have to be kind of creating the systems which are minimalistic, right? The approach that we take for DPI, having this minimalistic created, and then let ecosystem bring the innovation in, right? Help that whole thing just have that, a growth effect on exponential growth effect on it, right? So with that, I'll come to you, Shabir Bhai. Now you are the part of the ecosystem, right? Who are consumers of this IDs and payments, and providing the services to the citizens, right? So being a banker and the part of the policy making, where you have to balance this whole thing out, right? In terms of, at the one end you have to bring in that innovation and ease out for the citizens to be able to consume these services, but at the same time you have to ensure that trust factor still is around, right, in terms of the interest of the consumer protections and things like that, right? So how has you been part of this journey, right? How Bangladesh has taken care of it, like BRAC especially being the one of the biggest banks here, right? How this whole thing has been taken care of, and how these DPIs have helped in terms of shaping this whole thing up.
Yeah, thank you. Assalamu alaikum and good morning, everybody. In the recent years, I must say, COVID was a great learning opportunity for us, and that has opened many doors. Starting from the government payments, the stipends, social safety net payments, everything we eventually found resorting to the available channels infrastructure, which are part of this DPI. Initially, definitely we had hiccups. There were trust issues, but once the discipline was there, once awareness was there, now that everything is only getting through these channels and rails. At the same time, we are actually, through both our banking channels, through MFS, through the government initiatives, making our customers aware that you'll have to take charge of your own identity, of your own devices, of your own credential. That's how it's happening. But it's a continuous journey. We actually make it a point to reiterate almost every month, once, twice, thrice, in different other ways, so that it gets through to the customer. We also understood that whatever mode we use for communication, if it doesn't get through to the customer, that's not customer's problem. That's our problem. So we'll have to really innovate as to how to recoin the same message so that it gets instilled. That's what.
Thank you, Shabir Bhai, and I guess that is one another important point. That's a continuous journey, right? And we have to all just be part of this and keep sailing, right? So again, I'll come back to you, Parks, right? So now on that trust part, right? What we are talking about, right? So how do we give that confidence to the citizens, right? When we are dealing with digital identities, right? So as long as the physical identities were there, you are carrying the ID. So responsibility of keeping it safe was with citizens, right? Now, because being the digital ID where you are centrally authenticated, your data is with the government, right? So now governments are equally responsible to keep safe of that data. Now you have been doing this for 20 years, right? So I would want to understand from you, right? What are the key concerns around privacy and data protection and whole of this customer data management per se, right? That Dukchapil take care of, and what are the critical aspects around this, right? How do we give that trust, confidence to citizens?
Okay, thank you. Actually, in Indonesia, before we allow the banks, for example, a financial institution to access our data for verification and for authentication, of course, there are many requirements that need to be fulfilled before they can do it. For example, they need to have a kind of memorandum of understanding and also agreement with Dukcapil. When it is done, then they also have an administrative requirement, such as this institution need to show or give us the certificate related to the management security, ISO 2007 to 27 and 1 about management information security. Every organization who want to use, not to verify our data must have this ISO 27001 certificate. And after that, they have to use a private network to Dukcapil. And also, we don't give the data, we just give the notification, yes or no. So when they send demographic data to Dukcapil, then Dukcapil try to match the data. When the data match, we just send the notification, yes, this is match, or this is not match. This is one type of the authentication. But now, through digital ID that we introduced in 2022, because the digital ID can create consent for the citizen, so citizen can give their own consent whether what data they need to share. And also, this is still use a private network. So we are very strict in implementing how the other institution or relying party to access our data for verification and for authentication. I think this is also supported by the dissemination and socialization to institutions about how safe and how effective this will reduce costs and effective and efficient for the institution to run their business.
Yeah. Thanks, Paxino. And out of that, the part you mentioned, right? So responsibility lies equally, as I understood from you. So responsibility lies equally with government and the ecosystem partners, right? Where you talked about that, ecosystem partners themselves have to have, those kind of certifications and ensure, they when they access this ID information, right? So they do not, use it for other means, right? So wherever there are restrictions in terms of what you are doing, just a yes/no answer, right? So things are kind of managed. But wherever the governments are like, in case the eKYC data is shared, right? So the protecting the data is equally responsibility of the ecosystem as well. And I guess together that would bring in the trust, right? Yeah. As an entire ecosystem in terms of the authorities who are managing the data, as well as the ecosystem who is leveraging the data. I guess that need to be sorted out, right? So I'll come to you, Sabine, on that, right? With that, kind of whole, when we bring this whole ecosystem along and things like that, right? How can we do this in a more inclusive and as part of your experience, have you seen, right? How can this be done in a more, is there a gender neutrality that we can have as part of it, right? Wherein does ecosystem need to do certain things where they make it inclusive for everyone, irrespective of genders and regions, geographies, and whatnot, right? So what are I would want to understand from you in terms of, because you have visibility on larger Africa, what happens around, right? So if you can share some thoughts on that. Sabine, sorry, you're not audible.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, now we can. Yes, please. Yes.
Okay. All right. No, I was saying thank you very much for the question. I will start with the fact that half of the population are women. So if you are designing without women in mind, you are by default excluding half of the population. So for me and at African Enda, we are advocating for gender centricity, meaning gender intentionality when you are designing, so at the design level, and gender transformational in the impact you seek for these, half of the population to be able to access financial services and leverage it to elevate, their families and themselves out of poverty. So from my perspective, if you take into account what the data is telling us, for instance, there is a consistent gender gap in access to accounts, 6%. There is also the gap into smartphone access, actually. I believe it's 17% by GSMA. And there's a gap into mobile internet usage for women, which is about 19%. So when you put it all together, it is our responsibility as we're looking at the inclusivity of digital payment, digital public infrastructure, and particularly inclusive instant payment system, to make sure that we are being intentional in including women, and specifically from several levels. I think for us, the government has a role to play, regulators, the private sector itself, and like you said, the ecosystem players. And when you look at some of the key barriers, instance, access to phones or access to mobile connectivity, those are things that the government can play a key role in enabling, of course, in partnership with the public sector. When you look at it from a regulator's perspective, how can you move forward if you don't know what's your current baseline? And a few regulators are actually mandating gender disaggregated data collection from the financial system. making that a requirement across the board will enable every country to realize where the baseline is with regard to inclusion of women and be able to take the right policies to move it forward. Identity is also a barrier. So from a regulator perspective, the ability to also look at, KYC, tiered KYC regimes to make sure that we are really onboarding as many as we can, and also, of course, working with the government to make identity documents as available as possible. Those are also key areas to look into. But if you look at it from the design piece of these instant payment system, I think from an access perspective, it is really key to make sure that the system is accessible and that the relays that are being used for people who don't have the tools, i.e. the agent network, cash in or cash out network, are also doing their fair share to onboard and educate and with regard to access to these financial services as much as possible. And last but not least, I think we all in the ecosystem and the enablers and the ecosystem players and ourselves at Africa NENDA are very keen into making sure that we are researching these barriers truly and sharing with the ecosystem what can be done. So I'd encourage all of you to join us November 8th in Addis Ababa for the launch of the SIPS 2023 report, where we do have a key piece related to understanding the barriers that instant payment systems are facing, including women, and making some recommendation. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, Sabine, thanks. And yes, very, very relevant point in terms of we have to make it gender focused, right? Like especially women as part of this whole thing, right? And with that, I want to come to you, Sabir Bhai. Like now, BRAC Bank has been, kind of innovators in many cases for a lot of, things which are implemented in Bangladesh, and especially a multi-channel strategy approach that you have created, where you have maybe introduced call centers, or where you have introduced these different mechanisms for accessing financial services, right? How this aspect of a gender agnostic approach, or maybe gender focused approach, wherein we involve women or increase women participation in the whole financial inclusion, right? To take care of that, how BRAC has evolved, and some learnings you want to share with the rest of us, right? How can other banks and other countries take some inspirations from that and do it in their respective places?
Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, it comes from our values. I mean, what we received from our founder, Sir Fazli Hassan Abed, that inclusiveness comes first. From that point of view, as Sabine was pointing out, that if we do not explicitly include women, in that case, we are actually excluding half of it. That is in the very core of what we do every day. So from that point of view, as far as the banking services and channels are concerned, I can proudly mention that BRAC Bank is the only bank in Bangladesh which offers toll-free lines in the call center. It doesn't cost much. I'm sure other banks are considering and coming to join in the same movement. As far as our mobile financial services and our mobile apps are concerned, these are very friendly. It doesn't take to be digitally literate. It is very intuitive and human-centric design it has got. From that point of view, we understood that irrespective of wherever we are, irrespective of the gender, we have this poverty of internet access. Doesn't necessarily mean that the infrastructure is not available, but often we see that we are into this habit of purchasing internet or talk time at a very micro level, like 10 taka pack almost every day, twice or thrice. So that is a huge impediment. I mean, you won't be able to do whatever you want to do now in absence of that basic facilitation. So what we are doing at BRAC Bank is we are offering free internet to our customer for such mobile app usage. In fact, if you look at the USSD infrastructure, that had always been free for the users. I mean, who used to take that cost? The MFS operators. For Bangladesh, the largest operator, I would say, Bikash and Nogod, they had investments in USSD and a lot of customers in there. Now that this move from USSD to app, that's sensible, that's required, I understand, but a whole lot of population will still be using USSD. So my urge, not only for Bangladesh, for many other countries, will be not to sideline USSD. For foreseeable future, we need to continue to invest in that for basic services like small deposits from various corners. That definitely includes women, and they don't have any other way to save. That also includes our micro lending ventures. So all these we are trying in small bits. I can share another success story, recent collaboration with Bikash, where we are enabling Bikash customers who are all across throughout Bangladesh to open DPS with Bragg Bank. In last 4 months, we have seen 100,000 DPS accounts getting opened seamlessly without any assistance, and it's continuing. I'm sure everybody, I mean, all other banks will soon evaluate and follow.
Thank you, Shabir Bhai. Thanks for those insights, and I'm sure like the journey would continue in terms of Bragg Bank having more, people and more such kind of services they include, right, to make it more inclusive. Yeah. So with that, I'll just open it up for questions from the audience. In case you have certain questions, we'll just take a couple of 2 or 3 questions. So yes, please. Yes. Maybe can we have a mic over there? Yeah, please.
Thanks. Can I sit down and just...
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay. I was kind of curious to know, of course, like we in Bangladesh probably have a peculiar... I'm not sure whether we have this peculiar problem only in Bangladesh or that is also in other countries, particularly with regarding to the identity layer. Now, you see that in Bangladesh, we have, and the keynote paper has actually given about this whole NID. And we have been actually running this almost like, most probably even before Aadhaar got introduced in India. The problem is not the verification itself. I think there are a lot of interesting use cases, and I would say very innovative use cases in last few years that is actually some related with that identity theft in the sense, because you see, the NID server is there. They are actually running okay. They are actually getting verified by a request from the telco operators or the financial institutions. Now the problem becomes, in recent months, what we have seen, there are a lot of kind of false or kind of those kind of like SIMs or accounts that is actually being verified. So for example, some SIM has been issued in my name. I don't know. And that person or the fraudster is actually verifying through the NID system. Okay. And under my name, there is an MFS account. So, and with that account, a lot of financial crimes are being actually being done, including online gambling, crypto buying, and all those things. Now, we have seen in the recent weeks, in a lot of the cases, law enforcing agencies are actually trying to find those out. Now, my question to all, including you and also Sabir Bhai, and what we have seen that problem is not that prevalent in banking system, like financial regulated banks, like Bragg Bank or others, but that is very prevalent in MFS segment. Now, MFS is much more user-friendly, and they are a little bit less restrictive, whereas banks are a little bit more restrictive. So I just don't know, like, are other countries like India or other African countries or Indonesia has actually gone through the same challenges of identity verification in terms of eKYC, or is it a very Bangladesh-specific issue?
So, right? Yeah, please, Shabir Bhai.
Yeah, actually, crime in any space, as we have seen in the past, it only takes a few people to orchestrate, try, and eventually get nabbed and all, okay? Only then this awareness or the guards that we put up, that works for us and it goes on. As far as this digital space is concerned, we are getting our fair share of such problems. Now, in the recent past, our experience is law enforcing authorities are really cooperating. They are trying to do all sorts of forensic investigations. They are well equipped, in fact, much more equipped than we know. So our recent experience, when we sensed that there are calls from sources we don't know from where, but mimicking our call center number, calling to the customer saying they're calling from the bank, that's definitely a fraudulent call, or we need to deal with it. So we've done appropriate registration with the local police station, I mean, a general diary and all. We went to the BTRC requesting for their help, and they're doing all sorts of help. They're trying to pull up every corner from that point of view. We had such experience in the past as well. And we understood that our local police authority, they nabbed some groups who were there in the jail for a good part of a year or so. So things are happening. But at the same time, there is a huge awareness component. We need to take charge, as I was saying at the very beginning, that we need to actually safeguard our own credentials, even our own mobile. We cannot leave it like that and go. I know for sure an instance where an educated, literate customer who actually gave her mobile to a mobile mechanic for some problem fixing and all. So it was there for 2 hours, and after that, everything happened. So from that point of view, we will not be doing that. We will not be leaving our mobile to somebody for this purpose or that. Even when we go for prayer, we must make it a point to take it with us, turn it off, because when it is unattended, even insiders can make so much fraud. All it takes is an OTP to be transported, for pool money cases, say, for example. So these are there. So we are gradually making progress, I would say. Hold on. It's not a stopper, but I would say we need to actively take interest in fixing it.
My question was, like, what we have seen across the country, and particularly this type of things are happening in village areas, where, like, those agents who are actually selling both SIMs, at the same time they are actually MFS agents. What they are doing actually is, like, very poor farmer or kind of rickshaw puller, they are saying that, okay, you just give a thumbprint and we will give you 200 taka or whatever. So basically they are selling their identity.
True.
Now it is okay for me to get that awareness, don't give it to others. But when we're talking about millions of people across the country, and we can't expect them to be so aware, they just get some money out of, like, selling their identity. So this identity selling problem, I was just curious to know, is it also kind of issue in Indonesia or even India?
So I'll just add on to that. So see, like one part what Shabir bhai mentioned, that okay, it is a continuous improvement process, right, which we are into. So when you have good actors, you will have bad actors as well, right? So both will play, and everybody has to just beat each other in a game, right? So that is what it is going to be. In India, right, similar problem arised, right, wherein these because of the physical identity exchange, like you take a print of the identity and share it with maybe mobile operators and things like that, right? So there were duplicate SIMs issued on the name, right? But what the telecom regulator has done is they have given an opportunity for the citizens where you can go and check, the numbers listed with your identity, right? And whichever number doesn't belong to you, you can actually request for a deactivation, right? So that way they have at least disabled couple millions SIM cards like that, right? Where these identity theft has happened, and people have just forged identity and taken connection on somebody else's name. So we definitely, it's with the awareness, actually we have to make citizens continuously aware of these kind of frauds and all those things to prevent this stuff, right? So I'll just take one more question because we have to wrap up and the other panel is about to start. Just one question, whoever want to ask.
ওনার প্রশ্নের উত্তরে জাস্ট আমি বিটিআরসির প্রতিনিধি থেকে একটু ছোট করেই বলতে চাই যে হ্যাঁ, আপনাদের এই প্রবলেমটা আমরা পেয়েছি এবং আমরা বাংলাদেশ ব্যাংকের পিএইচডি পেমেন্ট সিস্টেম ডিপার্টমেন্টের সাথে এমএফএস অ্যাকাউন্ট হোল্ডার এবং মোবাইল যে অ্যাকাউন্ট যে নাম্বারটা সে ইউজ করছে অ্যাকচুয়ালি দুজনই একই ব্যক্তি কিনা, এটা আমরা কোলাবোরেশন বায়োমেট্রিক ভেরিফিকেশন মনিটরিং প্ল্যাটফর্ম একটা বিটিআরসি এস্টাবলিশ করেছে এবং এই ভেরিফিকেশনের মাধ্যমেই এই কাজটা খুব শীঘ্রই দেওয়া হবে। মানে ভবিষ্যতে এমএফএস অ্যাকাউন্ট খোলার ক্ষেত্রে মানে আপনার মোবাইল অ্যাকাউন্ট এবং এমএফএস অ্যাকাউন্ট দুটাই হ্যাভ টু ম্যাচ, তারপরে আপনাকে অ্যাকাউন্টটা দেওয়া হবে।
থ্যাংক ইউ।
What is the reason of me having 20 SIMs? Like I am allowed to have 20 SIMs. 15 is too high. Too high. It should be.
Yeah, I agree.
So just one last question, sir. Yeah.
So, dear colleagues and panelists, good afternoon to all of you. This is not I am not throwing any questions, just one comment. Basically, I am Mohammad Ataur Rahman Khan, Joint Secretary, ICT Division, and I work for as MD of Bangladesh Data Center Company Limited. So, we have been talking on financial inclusion and financial equity. So, just I want to give some thoughts and some aspirations and some future, the ideas for what Bangladesh government have been doing for a couple of years. So today we are talking about DPI, but government of Bangladesh have been working on this issue since long. So you know, we have established our internet services all over the country by InfoSarkar and by Connected Bangladesh projects. Our internet services is all over the Bangladesh. And at the same time, we will provide the access to our growth centers. So if we want to establish the financial equity, then how we will do? Our basic works, government has finished its primary fundamental works. So this is a kind of hope for all of you. And at the same time, we have a 4-tier data center. We have been talking about data security. So we have that very preparedness to ensure our data. And finally, the government has been formulated the Personal Data Protection Act, and very soon it will be passed in the parliament. So we government are going to giving the citizens data security and access to internet. At the same time, we have plans to mentioned a few tasks what we have done already, but we have plans to establish the inclusivity in financial sector all over the Bangladesh. This is not comments, just thoughts for all of you. Thank you very much.
No, definitely, and thank you so much for sharing that, and a lot of lessons to learn from Bangladesh as well, right? And we'll be part of this learning journey. So with that, I'll wrap this panel. Thank you so much for attending this. Thank you all the panelists for your valuable time and sharing all those insights from your countries. Thank you so much.
Thanks.